things now, and I'm going to use this document that I've made because I think it's easier to explain it for you guys, and then you can make the notes in your booklet using those three bubbles, one for Harold Bluetooth, one for Svein Forkbeard, and one for Canute the Great. So firstly, we'll look at Harold Bluetooth. Harold Bluetooth was the King of Denmark from 958 until 986, and he was the king of part of Norway, a region called Vik. He was king of the Vik region from 963 until he lost it in 974. Harold Bluetooth took over the control of Denmark from his father, Gorm the Old. And firstly, we'll look at the things that he did that was really significant. He converted to Christianity in 965. He built the Christian church at Jelling. Just add that in there. He had a second Christian runestone made at Jelling as well. And he reburied his father in a Christian manner. So he reburied Gorm the Old in a Christian manner. Arguably, he did this because he wanted to protect his lands from attack from the German kingdoms from below Denmark. So by converting to Christianity, they'd no longer attack in theory because they wouldn't attack fellow Christians. He connects people by moving the capital from Jelling to Roskilde. The reason he moves it from Jelling to Roskilde is for a tactical advantage. He believes that he will have better control over his people. It's a more central location. And he also feels that it will increase trade. He increases trade and connects people by building a number of bridges. The most notable was the bridge at Ravening Edge, which he builds to improve trade. He also builds strong walls around the trading towns of Hedeby, Ribe, and Aarhus. And then he defends the lands as well by building giant forts to control and defend his lands at Trelleborg and three other locations. The most famous, though, is Trelleborg, which he builds in 980. And this helps him to subdue and control local chieftains, and it also helps defend his lands from any further attacks. He's called Bluetooth because he connects people, he connects his nation, and he's the first king to control all of Denmark. His father, Gorm the Old, did it almost, but he's the first to control all of Denmark. The negative things about Harold Bluetooth is that he doesn't deal with the German threat on the border efficiently. He loses Hedeby in 974, and actually then it's his son Svein Forkbeard who recaptures it in the years that follow. He loses his lands to Norway in 974. We know he controls that region of Vik, that small region in Norway, which he takes in 963, but then he loses it in 974. You could also argue that a huge weakness of Forkbeard is the fact that he's overthrown by his son, Svein Forkbeard. He's killed in battle against Forkbeard. So that's Harold Bluetooth. His most notable achievements are his conversion to Christianity, moving the capital from Jelling to Roskilde, connecting people by building the largest bridge in the world at the time at Ravening Edge, and the 4 forts which he builds. So they're his most notable achievements. Then we move on to his son, Svein Forkbeard. Now, by the end of his reign, Svein Forkbeard was the king of Denmark, Norway, and England. So he takes over Denmark from his father in 986 and rules it until 1014. He captures Norway in the year 1000 and holds that until his death in 1014. He also takes control of all of England in 1013, which is an incredible achievement. However, he falls off his horse and dies a few weeks later, so he only holds England for a matter of weeks. What Svein Forkbeard did that makes him arguably a Great Dane, positive things, is that by 1014, as I've said, he's the king of all of Denmark, all of Norway, and all of England. In 983, he recaptures Hedeby before he is king, and that's a notable achievement because he was lost by his father, Bluetooth, in 974. Whilst Bluetooth did not support pagan jarls after he'd converted to Christianity, Forkbeard is tolerant of pagans, and therefore he does gain the support of pagan jarls in his homelands, and so that sort of boosts his popularity and his support. In Denmark, he gets rid of German bishops, so he's dealing with that threat that the German kingdoms face. He removes German bishops, and he invites leading English Christians to come to Denmark to lead the Christian church in Denmark. So not only is he defending his kingdom there, but he's also boosting Christianity in Denmark. Having gone to England to fight, he then returns and finds that Eric of Sweden has taken Denmark from him. But he with relative ease gets Denmark back from Eric of Sweden in 995. And after Eric of Sweden's death, he marries Eric of Sweden's widow. She's called Sigrid. And this is a very clever piece of political maneuvering because this creates an alliance really between the Swedes and the Danes, meaning that his kingdoms really are almost protected from attack from the Swedes because he's married to the old king's wife. Olaf Tryggvason goes against him during his raids on England and goes back to Norway and takes it from him. And so he then goes back to Norway and fights Olaf Tryggvason and takes Norway back in 996. So that's a significant step as well because he's regaining lands that have been lost. In 1013, in retaliation for the St. Brice's Day massacre, Svein Forkbeard attacks England, and eventually Ethelred flees to France, and Forkbeard takes control of the whole of England. So late in 1013, I think it's December 1013, he takes control of England. Another positive thing that he does is he continues to mint coins in Denmark and later in Norway as well. So that boosts trade and wealth and commerce. And he also boosts trade by promising to protect Christian traders from other countries that come to his kingdoms. So traders from other nations, Christian nations, are happier to come to his kingdoms to trade, and obviously that makes him money. In terms of the negative things that we could talk about Svein Forkbeard, his failures, in 994, Olaf Tryggvason goes against him and steals his lands away from him. He does recapture them, but he does lose them. We could also add in here as well, he loses lands to Eric of Sweden. However, he does Eric of Sweden, so he is a failure, but he does regain the lands. And then the other negative really to say is that Thorkild the Tall switches allegiance. Remember, Thorkild the Tall is one of his leading jarls that he takes to invade England. He switches sides and sides with Ethelred, but then he, in the end, defeats Thorkild the Tall and Ethelred, and both of them flee to northern France. So that's Svein Forkbeard. And then finally we have Canute the Great. Now, Canute the Great is King of England from 1016 to 1035. So throughout almost all of his reign. He is King of Denmark from 1018 when his brother Harold dies. We'll come to that a bit later on. When his brother Harold dies in 1018, he then takes control of Denmark and does not lose that until the end of until his death. And then Norway, he takes control in 1028, and again doesn't lose that until the end of his reign. In 1031, he's made the overlord of the Orkneys. So that's the Orkney Islands, the Shetland Islands, and the Isle of Man, and that's from 1031 until 1035. So the things that Canute the Great does, effectively, his successes, is that he's King of England without a break, without sort of any problem, from 1016 until 1035. He's also the King of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden by 1030. But his first real success is against King Edmund Ironside. Now, when his father dies, when Svein Forkbeard dies, the English aristocracy, the English nobles, quickly invite Ethelred back. So Ethelred returns from France and comes to the throne. Ethelred dies, and King Edmund Ironside, his son, takes the throne. Canute then fights Edmund Ironside for the throne of England, and after Edmund Ironside dies in 1016, after they sign a peace treaty, but then he dies soon after, Canute becomes the king of all of England. So they sign this peace treaty, and this peace treaty gives Canute about half of England. And then after Edmund dies, only a matter of months later, Canute then takes control of all of England. So he fights Edmund Ironside and effectively wins half the country. And then when Edmund dies, a couple of months later, he takes the whole country. Once he's king of England, I should stress, in England, he collects £72,000 of geld, of tax, and he uses this tax to fund this new standing army which he creates. So Canute creates this standing army, and he creates a naval fleet of 40 ships to protect his country of England and to keep control of it. And so he uses this geld, this tax, in order to keep control of the nation. So that's a very effective way that he keeps control in England. Another way he keeps control in England is that he has many Saxon nobles and lords executed, and he replaces them with Danish jarls. So again, he replaces them with people who are loyal to him, which is a way that he consolidates his power in England. He marries Ethelred's widow. So in his reign, when he's King of England, he marries Emma, Ethelred's widow, and this is a clever political move. Again, in the past, he's seen his father do it, and it's a clever political move because he then ensures the safety of his kingdom, both from rebellions from English people and also from attacks from Normandy. Another good thing that Canute does is his relationship with the Christian church. Now, with the Christian church, he provides them with land, with power and money, and in return, they support him as the legitimate Christian king of England. And so this really reaffirms and strengthens his control of the country. Something significant to note about Canute as well is that he's recognized by the Pope for the first time as a true Christian. He's the first of the Great Danes to be recognized by the Pope as a true Christian. And so this secures his position from other Christian kings who may attack him. As we've said earlier, in 1018, his brother dies and Canute becomes the king of Denmark. And then this makes him the king of England and the king of Denmark. And then in 1028, he fights Oleg Haraldsson and defeats him and becomes the king of Norway. And so this means he's the king of England, of Denmark, and of Norway, and creates what some historians call an Anglo-Scandinavian empire. Creates this Anglo-Scandinavian empire of Norway, Denmark, and England. The negatives really that you could talk about Canute, that there aren't really many. But what you could say is that when his father dies, Canute's brother, Harold, Harold takes Denmark from him when his father dies, so he doesn't have a chance to take it. But then 2 years later, in 1018, when Harold dies, he takes Denmark. So the key elements of Canute's reign, in terms of the key positives, he is very effective in the way he controls England. He creates almost like a navy and an army and funds it using tax, where he taxes Saxon people. He also consolidates his power in England by removing Saxon nobles and replaces them with Danish ones. He also gains very great support from the church, which they legitimize his reign and they support him. And he fights Oleg Haraldsson for the throne of Norway. He's given the throne of Denmark when his brother dies, but he fights for the throne of Norway, so that could be very strongly argued as another success.